Hello, everybody. It is Let's Talk Pregnancy Wednesday, and I'm so happy to welcome Emma Hahn today. She has some very interesting birth stories to share with us, and so we are going to talk about what she experienced because every pregnant mom is on a mission, and that mission is to gather data. And we love to learn from each other. Everybody loves a good birth story. Even me, I'm way, way, way far away from birth, but I love to hear people's birth stories. And I know that you're going to love to hear these and that you will probably be able to glean some good information from what she experienced, which is how we learn. So, Emma is the mom of three, and I'm going to just let her take over. And if you wouldn't mind, just tell us a little bit about yourself, Emma.
Yeah, so my name's Emma, and I'm married to a medical resident, so essentially single mom in some ways, but we call it a solo parenting. But I have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and an almost 1-year-old, and all of them were born during my husband's medical training at some stage. And so I've had 3 totally different experiences, even though all of them were medicated hospital births. They were all wildly different, positive and negative in different ways. For the first 2, the last one was really fantastic. So I'm happy to be here and share what I've gone through for people making decisions about their births that are coming up.
Yeah, I know people are going to really love to hear what you have to say, especially first-time pregnant moms, which is what we're really geared towards.
It's such a scary place to be in. I mean, I remember it's just, you never know what's going to happen. You haven't experienced it yet.
Right, exactly. So tell us about number 1. What happened then?
Yeah. So my birth with Samuel was, well, it was a surprise to begin with. We weren't planning to have a baby. So I in no way have been thinking about what I want or when I want it or what kind of birth. I was just like, oh my goodness, I'm pregnant and I'm 21 and we're still in college. What is happening? So we sort of just went along with whatever the doctor said. Looking back, I really didn't have a very supportive doctor. She was very forceful of her own methods upon me. And we're like, I don't know, she's the doctor. Like, it'll probably be fine. I just really didn't know any better. Didn't know that I wanted to be supported in other ways. So I was still healthy. Baby was still healthy. Even in those situations, things still go relatively pretty well. But we had sort of been forced to do some cell-free DNA testing with him. And turned out he had tested positive for some genetic anomaly, and that followed us through the whole pregnancy and was sort of forced upon us this whole birth plan of inducing early and like inducing with a first-time baby was like really intimidating. Turns out he was completely healthy and fine, and you never know at those things if they're really true or not. But my first birth was an induction at 38 weeks and 3 days. So pretty early for a first-time mom. And I had no idea what to expect. Nobody explained what was going to happen. I had a really rude nurse. She was like taking the covers off of me without telling me anything, like exposing me. And I'm like, what are you doing? Give me some dignity, you know? Just coming in like, we're going to break your water now. We're going to start Pitocin now. I had no say in any of it. And I didn't know how to have a say in it. And so I sort of just went along with it. It started out extremely painful immediately. As soon as they started Pitocin, I started having regular contractions very, very fast. They were very intense. It was very hard to focus through them. I could not focus through them. And so as soon as their window came up for, you had to labor this long to get an epidural, I was like, please sign me up. I want that. I need that. I'm not coping. I'm not doing okay. I had previously been very scared of getting one. The idea of the long needle and just the idea of losing sensation seemed weird to me. But at the time, it was like thank God.
Right.
Thank God for this. And so it was, I was nervous getting the epidural. They let my husband stay in the room at that point. I know now there's some policies where they make them leave. I guess some partners like just pass out or freak out seeing it, but he got to be with me. And it really brought a ton of relief. It brought like emotional relief because I could actually like breathe again and like open my eyes and relax and sit up and not be, focusing through each wave of each contraction. And I was really amazed at the difference in my disposition. So I had been like extremely stressed, extremely on edge, like none of the comforts that I thought would be comforts were comfortable. And so I was just sort of grasping at straws to try and cope. And all of a sudden I'm able to like relax and just sit there and talk normally. And I was like, wow, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
So I was a big fan of that. And it actually relaxed me so much that I dilated from like 4 centimeters to 10 in about 30 minutes.
Oh my.
Everybody was really shocked at that, especially as a first-time mom. I'd only been laboring for about 2 hours.
Yeah.
So, sometimes they say it'll stall you out, but in my case, that's never been the story. Yeah, I was actually able to sort of yield to the process by being relaxed. So, downsides of that birth, the epidural worked so well that I had no intuition in my body of when to push or how to push. I couldn't feel a contraction unless I had my hands on my belly, like feeling it get tighter, which is so weird, especially now having 2 more births after that. I really don't understand like how I had zero sensation. So that took a long, long time to deliver my first. Took about 3 hours of pushing. Just really, it's really pushing it. Yeah. And it was getting to the point where they're like, this really needs to happen in the next 20 minutes, or we're looking at needing to take you to a C-section. Yeah. So I was like, okay, no, I don't want that. Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so close. So there were some unintended side effects from it being so relaxing that, it made it harder for me to deliver him.
Right.
But he was still born healthy, still figured it out. It just took a lot longer.
Right. Yeah.
Recovery was pretty long. I felt the results of those hours of pushing for several weeks. That was pretty rough on my body.
Yeah. 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 So what about the next birth? What happened with Cora?
Yes. So after my son's birth and then going to Cora's, I was like, I really want a different experience. I want someone that's more open to me about the decision-making process, just so that I feel like I'm a little more in control. And I found a group of midwives that delivered at a hospital, and I figured they would have more of a natural approach towards it rather than all the interventions of my previous doctor that were constantly sort of being shoved down our throats. Like, give me some autonomy, please. So that whole pregnancy went really well, pretty uneventful. And at that point, I pretty much wanted to have a natural birth, I think, because I didn't want the intensity of the Pitocin that I experienced with the induction.
Right.
I knew that was sort of like an augmented feeling, like that was a lot worse maybe than it really was in reality. And I got to maybe 39 weeks and I kept going in and out of labor. I never knew what was happening. And now I know that that's normal for me. I would get like really regular contractions and then they'd stop, and that would go on for like the last 2 weeks of the pregnancy. So at one point, I really thought that it was beginning. And I think that I rushed in too soon because I hadn't gone through a natural labor. I had been induced. And so sort of set myself off on the wrong foot for a natural birth by going in really early because it's just so many disruptions when you get to the hospital, having to have your blood drawn, having to have the IV placed, and waiting for a room. And there's a lot of distractions for your mental focus. And a lot of those things actually didn't go so well. So I didn't have great nurses. They botched my IV twice. And when they started the Pitocin, it was just pumping into my arm like a giant tennis ball. It was terrible. So, you know, there's always things that come up that you can't prepare for. And I did push through those things. And so I pushed through all those distractions for about 12 hours. And when they finally ruined my IV the second time at like 2 a.m., I said, I'm done. I can't do this. I need the epidural. I've been focusing for hours, and just when things keep coming up over and over again that throw you out of your groove and cause more pain and cause just like, what's going on? Now we got to call this other person to come in here. And then there's more people in your room. It's just hard. It's just hard to keep that focus. And so I didn't have any more mental capacity to give to focusing through each contraction. And I think that was the right choice for me at the time, because I was so tired. And that brought a lot of relief getting the epidural at that point. So I was able to rest a little bit through the night and started dilating a little bit more, but not super fast. They did have to start Pitocin again, but that did help. Like, everything was working and moving forward. But about 5 o'clock in the morning, so my bag of epidural anesthesia was, you know, going down over this time. They last about 4 hours, and then they have to put a new one on. So it was running down, and I was starting to feel more because it was, you know, getting more diluted at the end of the bag. I'm like, I really need a new bag. Like, I'm probably at 8 centimeters at this point. I'm feeling it when it's wearing off. It's very, you know, starting to feel very painful through each contraction as it's getting more and more diluted. And the nurses were like, it's coming. We're going to get it. We're on it. Just stay focused, mama. It's okay. But at the end of the story, I found out that there was no more epidural anesthesia in the pharmacy. There had been some national recall. They had run out. They had been previously making it batch by batch by hand, and they just didn't have enough for me at 4 a.m. And so the nurses did not want to tell me that. My husband did know, but nobody wanted to tell me that and freak me out, you know? I didn't need to be freaked out at that point. I needed to just get through it. And so I think that was wise on their part. Because if I wasn't going to get it, then I didn't need to know. That's okay. And so I did actually go back to having full sensation of everything again. And so my husband was with me. We were trying different positions to alleviate the pain. But at that point, I was feeling all the surges of every contraction. And they were coming every minute and a half, then every minute on top of each other, overlapping. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore, which is kind of my sign in my mind, like, maybe this is almost the end. Isn't that what people say?
Yeah.
And so they were able to check that I was fully dilated at that point. So I went natural for 12 hours, epidural for 4, natural through transition into the pushing, which I was so scared. I was like, I did not sign up to do this. I chose the epidural. I'm not ready. I'm scared. But it was different. So once the transition sort of ended and the contractions sort of spaced out like they do when you're about to push, it wasn't painful anymore, which is sort of miraculous to me to experience. It was a different ball game entirely. And so I felt the urge to push, and it went relatively well. It only took about an hour with my daughter, which was still like, this is your second baby. This should be a lot faster. But come to find out, she was 10 pounds, 3 ounces, and she got her shoulder stuck in delivery. And so there was a moment of a lot of panic in there. A lot of people got called into the room, and I I was, just being yelled at by people, like, this baby needs to come out now, now, now. Like, this is an emergency. And so I was able to deliver her. I mean, I knew exactly what to do. I could feel the urgency in the room, but also like in my body, because I didn't have any epidural anesthesia. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't what I was expecting, but it was what we needed, because, I had no clue she was going to be that huge. Had no clue she was going to get stuck. And thankfully, because I had that full sensation, I knew, how to push her out as quickly as possible, and was able to do that with a lot more like intuition. So,
yeah, that's
it might not go how you want,
right? Yeah,
but it might go where it needs to go. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it seems as if that's just the way almost every birth story goes. It's a little bit mysterious. You don't know what's going to happen, and
absolutely. And I sincerely believe that running out of epidural is not going to happen to anybody else.
Right. Yeah, that was just
I think that was an extremely rare scenario. Right. But
yeah,
obviously it could happen, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I guess, it kind of depends on your personality. I like to think about like all of the possibilities and think through how I would respond. I guess you could think through that possibility.
Right.
I think like you said, is very, very unlikely today that can happen.
And, even if some other thing goes wrong, some way you weren't expecting it, like, moms are extremely capable. Moms are extremely resilient. And I was able to meet that moment, even though, I didn't know that's the way it was going to be. And so.
Yeah. And learning to trust your body to do the work. Because your body knows what to do.
He's always been a huge cheerleader of me during birth. And so he was with me through that, coaching me through contraction, helping me stay calm, even though he knew the real situation and I didn't. But he was able to get me through that. So
that's really great.
Yeah.
Okay, so now tell us, last one, Owen, he's going to wrap up this story. What happened with him?
This was so with my son, Owen. Yeah, my most recent. So almost a year ago. He's 11 months right now. And at first, I actually had a really hard time finding a doctor that would let me try for vaginal birth. So after a shoulder dystocia, which is what my daughter had, there's like a 20% chance of that recurring. And so some practices are way more conservative. They're like, we just want to give you a C-section. And I said, well, I pushed her out. Like, I can do this. She was there for about 30 seconds. No one was harmed. I wasn't harmed. She wasn't harmed. So I personally felt like signing up for a C-section was a little bit overkill for what I knew about myself, what I knew about my labor. And so I wanted to at least try for a natural birth. And so it took me, I don't know, maybe like 2 months of hunting around to find someone. So I actually didn't really have regular prenatal care until like the 3rd month of pregnancy, because I really wanted to find someone that would work with me.
Yeah.
At a hospital. I didn't want to do a birth center because I knew maybe it could happen again, but I wanted to be at a hospital. But I did not want a C-section. So I found my doctor. She's awesome. And, she kept reminding me of the risks and benefits of it, but it was always in a very non-forceful way. She's like, I'll support you, whatever you do. You just need to be aware, this is what could happen. It's up to you. I feel fine either way, but, it's my job to let you know. And so I appreciated her approach to that versus, doctor with baby number 1 would not have let me done that. So I think it's, that's a sign of a good relationship with a doctor. They're keeping you aware of what they need to make you aware of, but then they let you, within reason, in a safer situation, let you decide. So with him, I was going to do a scheduled induction. That way he did not get too big and we could still try for a birth. So with each of my previous births, as soon as they started Pitocin, the baby was born 6 hours later. So even though my daughter's birth was like 18 hours total, from Pitocin to baby was 6 hours. So I kept saying over and over, it's going to be fast. It's going to be 6 hours. And so my plan going in was start the induction, get the IV. I had to get penicillin because I had group B strep. So we had to run that for a little while. And as soon as they started the Pitocin, I would just request the epidural as soon as possible and just relax and rest and have an easy birth experience. And it was. So I still had to labor for about 2 hours just on the Pitocin because there's always a lag in, the communication in the hospital and the anesthesiologist having to become available. So, you don't want to wait too long to ask. You'll still have to wait no matter what. So if you want it, just go ahead and ask. And so they placed it really well. It was probably reduced the pain by about 75%, which obviously makes it way more manageable, but still that 25% can really kick. That can really intense.
Yeah.
And so at some point, as all the contractions were really building up, labor was progressing, I was dilating, that little 25% that wasn't covered started to feel a lot worse. So I asked them to come in and see if they could adjust it, help me adjust my position in the bed, or help titrate the amount up so it was more powerful. And so we tried lots of different things. Nothing was really working, and it was still extremely painful. Even though it was bringing it down a lot, it was still pretty intense. So at one point they gave me just a big rush of anesthesia, just an extra bolus of it. And I was like, yes, thank you. It's gone. The pain is gone. And that 30-minute window is when I fully dilated to 10 centimeters. So it was
That's what your body
similar.
does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's what I do whenever I get really good epidural.
Right.
And so, from that point on, it was okay, I feel pressure. I feel the baby's moving down. Things feel different. I feel like I need to push. But that big rush of epidural that helped me dilate, that had gone away. And so I was now feeling about 65% of the pain. Still enough to kind of keep me from freaking out, but definitely a lot more sensation.
Right.
And I think that was the first, that was not the first birth I felt that way. I felt that way with Cora, but I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting to have the epidural most of the time. And so the feeling, the need to push him out was really intense. And thankfully he was delivered very quickly. No problems with the shoulder. He wasn't stuck. It was 10 minutes of pushing and he was out, which was very, very fast. Yeah. And he was a surprise baby. We actually didn't know his gender. And so when he was born, the team didn't know that I didn't know. So they didn't announce it. They just put him on my belly and they're like, I tried asking what is it? They're like, oh, just look. I'm like, oh, it's a boy. So
yeah, that's
so that was a very positive experience. It was, the epidural brought down a lot of the pain, helped me relax, helped me dilate pretty well. And I still had a lot of sensation to be able to push him out really effectively, which was helpful in making sure he didn't get stuck like this before. Because he was still pretty big. He was 9 pounds, 11 ounces.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's cool.
So overall, I think I'm a big fan of getting the epidural. And I think a lot of people think that when you get it, you won't feel anything. And it's the cop out from birth, but it's really not true. You still might feel a lot. It still might not perfuse all the way on each side, depending on if they place it a little bit weird. Sometimes you feel more in one hip than the other.
Right.
And so for me, it's a really, really awesome coping tool for getting through it. It helps me to actually give in to the process of labor a little easier than doing it on my own.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, that's great.
I mean, it's exhausting. It's exhausting either way to have a baby.
Yeah.
And so for me, finding rest and finding ways to conserve my energy going into the newborn marathon. I'm a big fan of that.
Right.
So
yeah, I agree. Whatever we can do to make it the best for our baby and for ourselves and all of those things is really amazing. I experienced both types of birth, natural and with epidural, and I'm a fan of epidurals. So I just have one last quick question, and that is, as you guys on your first pregnancy, particularly because this, we're geared towards people who are pregnant for the first time. About when in your pregnancy did you begin even thinking about this and talking about it, and how did y'all manage that?
Yeah. So I think the thoughts came pretty quickly, what am I going to do? What do I want to do? But it was more so towards the end that I started firming those up, because at the beginning, it's like sometimes you don't even believe that you're pregnant yet,
Right. Yeah.
But as that baby starts getting really big, you're like, this baby has to come out,
Yeah.
How is
The reality sets in. Yeah.
Like, what is that going to be like? Because that is definitely going to happen.
Yeah.
And so I think towards the end, I had this idea in my mind that I wanted a natural birth with my first, but I didn't prep for that at all. I mostly felt like, I think guilt that if I didn't at least try for a natural birth, then I was just copying out, or I wasn't really like choosing to be my strongest self, or some of these narratives that you might hear, or I wasn't, believing in the power of what my body can do. My body's going to birth the baby with the epidural or not. Like, my body's very powerful. It's how I want to experience that.
Yeah.
And so I think that what I really wanted is what I got. I got a more restful birth, ease the pain. It's such a scary experience to have a baby for the first time. You have no idea what to expect. All the sensations in your body you've never felt until it starts happening. And to have something available that relieves that pain and helps you actually be able to think clearly and talk to your husband, talk to your, doula, whoever's in the room with you, and actually be able to calm down a little bit and be in that moment without being totally afraid. I'm a big fan of that. And my husband was always supportive of whatever I wanted to do, but I think he saw through my claims for a natural birth. He's like, why would you? That doesn't sound like you at all, Emma. I mean, like, if you get sick, you take medication. Like, you're not about the all-natural life, just in your normal life.
Yeah.
So why would you force that upon yourself for a huge life experience, that's going to require so much mental focus and so much dedication if you really want it to be medication-free? Like, that's a huge feat. And I wasn't even prepping for that. I think just in my mind, that's all I could think about. Like, this is the best thing to do, so I guess I should do that. But the best thing is more so like what helps you get through it with less anxiety, with more peacefulness, with more restfulness. I think, if an epidural is what sounds like that for you, then that's a good choice, and it's a safe choice, and it's
and it's really all part of creating your birth plan and talking it through with your partner about what do you want this experience to be like, this experience that you've never had before. It's kind of hard to plan, but there's childbirth professionals who can help you talk through these things. And for a person who's committed to all natural, there are, there's methods and mannerisms and ways to manage all that, to support it and to support your decision and be an advocate for you.
Absolutely.
And then, however it is that you choose to have your baby. And that's why it's so important to make the plan, to talk it through in plenty of time, so you do have time for the logistics of it, but also the mindset of it,
especially the mindset of it.
The mindset is just so big, and it's so influenced by every single person who sees your belly and wants to give an opinion, So
for being true to yourself and what you want to do for your family is really important. So, if it gives you extreme anxiety to think about doing a natural birth, then maybe that's your sign.
It's not for you, right? And then another person might be the opposite. They feel anxiety about
Right.
the medication. And so it really
Absolutely.
is individual.
Some people, like dear friends of mine, that have absolute anxiety about the epidural, and the idea of natural birth just thrills them. They're so excited to do it. They're so excited to see, you know, what their body does. They've been prepping for it. And I'm like, go you. That's great. If that's what thrills you to get through your birth, then absolutely. You know, that's not how I am. But, you know, everybody has a different, you know, different things that can get them through that. So.
Because the bottom line is you have a babe in your arms and your life has changed and you're a parent from that point forward. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your stories. I know that that will be so helpful for people as they are learning all that they can about their own birth plans and birth experiences. At Nurtured Noggins, we've got a course that addresses all of these things. We spend plenty of time and give you tons of resources on creating these birth plans and talking about, you know, what your options are as you head towards the delivery room. And so I'm going to put a link for Birth School here in the comments. And then also, I just want to encourage you guys to talk with your partners and talk these things through. Begin the conversation really early, so that you don't feel rushed, because it is a really big thing. Any closing comments? Anything?
I wish I had a birth school. It was my first. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to advocate for myself. I didn't know how to find a provider that matched with my goals, or how to recognize, you know, malignancy within, you know, a group of care providers, you know. And I think what you're offering is really helpful, just to help people find what they need to be supported in the way they want to be supported, and talk it through early. So
it's a really neat course. I mean, there's a lot on this whole hospital labor and delivery, but then there's a section on fitness, you know, the exercises that you can do to help feel those things, to get them pushed out, and then to help you, you know, recover afterwards. And then there's one on breastfeeding, which is really neat. Got this really great lactation consultant who answers a lot of really insightful questions about breastfeeding to kind of help you think that through. And then all about getting your house ready, all the nesting things and all of the head and heart things, because there's a lot to do to get ready. But thanks again, Emma.
Thank you for having me. I'm grateful to share.
Yeah, so happy that you were able to join. Thanks for joining me. Okay, well, we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
All right.